And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning's flying weather graphic here showing IFR up over the North Slope and out to the Arctic coast. But the Brooks Range southward there into the northwest interior looking pretty good with mostly VFR flying conditions there. Back to the IFR here, or holding the IFR over Cook Inlet into portions of the Susitna Valley, and a band of marginal VFR right along the Yukon River over toward the border. And with a front here, we've got IFR from the Pribilof Islands down across the Alaska Peninsula, and also over the central Aleutians, marginal VFR for the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, that IFR burns off in Cook Inlet there, leaving VFR behind across all of southern Alaska, much of the interior. Still some lingering marginal VFR here over on the northeast part of the state, and a band of IFR also holding there along the Arctic coast. IFR over the southeast panhandle, and a band of IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea, sliding into the Alaska Peninsula, actually over the Alaska Peninsula, sliding in toward Sitkinak there near Kodiak, and some more IFR here for the central Aleutians. And then for Tuesday morning, IFR central eastern Arctic coast there, marginal VFR down to the Brooks Range south of the mountains, VFR, scattered marginal conditions over east, and also some IFR here possibly in Chillicothe Strait with IFR over southern Kodiak Island back across the Alaska Peninsula, Pribilof Islands, VFR over the Aleutians, and mostly VFR here from the North Gulf Coast, some marginal VFR into the southern Kenai Peninsula, and mostly marginal for the Panhandle. For the afternoon, marginal VFR gives way to some VFR over the inside waters of the southeast coast, but a band of moisture here spreading IFR in close to the south coast, not quite making it there, but some marginal VFR here over the Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet, mostly VFR in the interior, and then the North Slope Arctic coast, still looking at a band of IFR up there, and an area of IFR out over the Bering Sea, while the Aleutians are mostly marginal. And for the passes up north, Brooks Range, Anaktuvuk and Atigun, going for a VFR day for both of those passes Monday. Same thing for Lake Clark and Merrill there. The Alaska Range looking pretty good tomorrow with VFR flying right through Lake Clark, Merrill, rainy, windy, Isabel, and Mentasta as well. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage starts out IFR with a low clouds fog condition, becoming VFR at some point in the day, hopefully. And for Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal. Freezing levels here, it's at the surface through the Bering Sea, south of the Alaska Peninsula, up along the North Gulf Coast, down across the Panhandle, 2,000 feet down toward the Queen Charlottes. And for icing, some possible mixed icing here of the light variety, maybe isolated moderate possible there for the southeast coast. And with the front here, the heavier icing would be along the Alaska Peninsula with this area of icing threats, and then a lesser threat out there over the western and central Aleutians. Still a threat of some icing up here, eastern Brooks Range out to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And the jet stream here, big upper level high there along the Russian coast. Northerly flow at 70 knots into the Arctic coast, around that high 60 to 70 knots out of the east there across St. Lawrence Island. And then easterly winds here up to 60 knots there on the north side of this low, south of Adak and Atka. And low pressure aloft here at over the Yukon. We've got westerly winds, 60 knots south of the Kenai Peninsula, pick up to 85 to 100 knots across the southern southeast coast. And those are markedly lighter at 9,000 feet here, just light southwest flow with this weak low there south of Yakutat. Pretty light over the central eastern interior. Southeast winds 40 knots here, take a turn to the west at about 45 knots, blowing from east to west here with that high up over the Russian coast. Northerlies to northeasterlies at about 35 across the northwest part of the state from the eastern Arctic coast to the Seward Peninsula area. And then the stronger winds here on the north side of a frontal boundary connected with these two low pressure areas, about 35 to 45 knots. 9,000 feet, those winds are stronger here over the southern Bering Sea, north of the Aleutians, but 55 knot east-southeasterlies blowing right across the Alaska Peninsula, about 35 knots blowing across the Aleutian Range, northeast Bristol Bay, east 35 for St. Lawrence Island, east winds 50 knots there over the southwest Bering. By contrast, light winds for the Gulf of Alaska and the Panhandle and much of the mainland. Turbulence-wise, could be some considerable moderate turbulence here for the southern Panhandle area. Also for Kodiak Island into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula and out over the western Aleutians, as well as St. Lawrence Island.